That's part. Yes, this is part two with Moria Chappell. Welcome. If you haven't watched part one, go back and watch it. We were talking about so the bigger question was what was your practice and how do you call what you do? And then you got into a point that I find really interesting that we can continue here, which is you say that the belly is the strongest part of the center of the body, so you don't have a problem with belly dance, with the word belly dance as well as with the word tribal. You said it is problematic when people call it that. No, I said when people call it that and don't study the science. And then you said we all start with we don't know. As long as you're still learning, I'm behind you. And then you said it's people who stop and get rigid. And then we got cut. What was
Right.
your thought?
Oh, yes. So that's true. And I do think that is that all of us start not knowing anything. All of us. So we all have to have the freedom and the grace to do things that don't make sense, things that are kind of anachronistic, things that even are offensive, and then you learn and the process grows and you develop, right? Because creativity is dance is part of the artistic world. You have to have a safe kind of environment in which to do bad things, really. And then you learn, and the good things grow from there, so long as you keep progressing, keep learning, keep honing your craft, honing your art. This is something that, with the age of the internet, because I am old enough to have been performing since before people were recording everything, before everything went online. And so you could have the best set or the worst set of your life, and only the people in that room ever saw it. Right. And so you're just imprinting on their memory of it. So you could really grow over time and experiment and learn and figure things out on a timeline that people aren't given nowadays, because it's all documented. And then people immediately come down on another artist or performer for having done something maybe stupid, but maybe the next thing that we're going to do is going to be really great, or the next thing, or something like that, the process. So that's kind of one caveat there, that I don't know how to have an incubation period that's protected in making mistakes. Because if you can't do that, you're going to be quite stunted. So then the other is that when people become so very knowledgeable about a topic, they can also be very rigid with where they're ending or with their guarded line. Like, if they're, as I was speaking before, if you're looking at the history of dance as far as dance is recorded, you kind of can only follow a certain line. But if you cross compare with oral history, with archeology, with textiles, with religious practices, with spices, with things that in history were surrounding the dance or woven within the dance, and you can look through that, sort of, you broaden, then you'll see things that are more likely or less likely or possible or whatever. But again, then people get very rigid in, can you prove it or can you not prove it? Because if you can't prove it, you can't say it. Well, if we can't say it, we can't really explore it either. And so then that becomes quite rigid. And then you kind of will go backwards and start really harming people who are trying to have a discussion by telling them, yeah, but you can't prove it. And it's like, well, okay, science can't prove thought. You can't replicate it. But we know we have them, right? I mean, that's a more maybe simple, but there's lots of phenomenon that happened, have happened, will happen, that science can't prove. That doesn't mean that it's not real. So it's kind of this dance between becoming so rigid that you're stopping experimentation, stopping discussion, stopping theory and imagination. But then if you do away with all of that, then there's no substance even to discuss or create from. So you have to always have this balance between definition, understanding, training, sort of a more classical approach, and an open, experimental, um, discussive, creative place where, what if, could it be? And then somewhere in between. And again, things can be on a spectrum where sometimes it needs to go more this way, sometimes more that way, but a nice balance in there is where I think that everybody should be as artists. It kind of surprises me when artists can be so rigid, because typically one of the characteristics of an artistic person is an open demeanor, an open sort of personality type that.
Mm-hmm. And the characteristic of being rigid in the sense of like if you're a trauma informed, the
Right.
characteristic of a traumatic experience of a trauma is a Greek word for wound. That's where it comes from. And if you look at the skin and it is wounded, that part of the skin is very rigid. So it
Right.
becomes non-flexible or not as flexible as skin is usually. And I often associate rigidity to either fanatic things like, I don't know, religious fanatism or scientific fanatism or, wounds, traumas where people are unwilling. But yeah, in order to like, I think like as in science as in art, and for me, science and art are quite interwoven because as an artist, I think you have to do a lot of research on your own. I come from a very non-traditional and non-institutional background. I've never been into an institution, but still I'm an avid researcher and talking to people. So I think that is interesting. And then, but also being sort of, always asking questions. I think that asking questions is important and it's healthy to a certain point. Um, but then some people might have to be more careful about what they say and what they do, like not thinking too much, and then the balance between overthinking and not saying it at all, yeah, is like
And
is
it's tricky. It is certainly tricky. I mean, it's not, I don't think that I have the answers to that, but I know that for my own guidance, that's where I go with it. Because the other extreme might be that you just end up tearing tradition apart because
Mhm.
you don't want it to be so rigid that it stifles you. So you just start, deconstructing everything. And it's like, okay, well, then you tear it down, tear it down, tear it down, tear it down. Well, now what? It is so much harder to create than to destroy. So then you got to find the
Yeah.
crafting and the creating and what comes back again. So there's definitely an argument in both directions where you don't want to be giving out, let's say, misinformation, of course,
Yeah.
as a very popular word, and you don't want to be misleading people. But, you can say this is a potential, this is higher than likely, that no, there's no certainty, but you can go in this direction and discuss it in that way. And I think as long as people are kind of open to the discussion and not trying to dominate, a lot of power struggles happen within these discussions of words. I can't stand it when dancer communities explode over words, over semantics, over what words do we
Mhm.
use. It's like, but we're dancers, we're movement artists. The words are only as good as they can actually help you, not that they're. And I find that the moment you start destroying, then this is a problem. I mean, this is I don't know. Again, if things become too rigid, then you do have to a little bit destroy it to allow it to become more fluid again. Like you're saying with massage or something, you can really tear into the scar tissue and then get more fluids in there to help healing. So, but I would recommend that aspect of it be handled like a scalpel rather than a sledgehammer. And for
Yeah.
yourself too, because as an artist, you want to have a critique of your own work,
Mhm.
but not so much that it makes you stop. And I
Yes.
think maybe that's the marker is, are you stopping people
Mhm.
from creating? And if you are, then you're being too heavy-handed about it. Are you inspiring them? This is maybe inspiration is the place where you feel you have enough openness to go forward, that you're not arrived yet, but you know the scaffolding upon which you can build. And then that sort of pulls you forward and you know the path to walk to get there. Something like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example because I believe that most of the dancers that I know, like for me, dance is more like a soul language. It's not my business. Um, it's not my business. I don't do it, it's not my main way to make money. But I think that for a lot of people that are in the dance that mainly live from that, they often come to the point where they can't create anymore because of the pressure and the other things, and they expect this, and often it's them with themselves.
Yes.
So that is one point, and then the other point is if you are a teacher or a mentor, you always have to find the right words to in to, inspire someone, but at the same time criticize them, but don't destroy. You can't, like, you have, that's this responsibility. You don't have the power to destroy. You should never destroy anyone else's work, I think.
Right.
You can do that with yourself, but with your own work, but never point finger at someone else and say this is blah 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 blah, because there is this logic in therapy also, that everything that you see in the other,
Hmm.
or as we say in German, like one finger is pointing to you, but three are pointing back.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and too within the artistic community. I mean, I understand when you're running it as a business, there's the competition for finite resources, right? You need the booking, the money, the attention, the fame. You know, you're building something that you need to make money off of, so it enters that. Within the artistic realm, there definitely, I mean, it's a broad table, especially with dance, because like I said before, I think when we were talking, is that dance evaporates the moment you're done with it. Like you are in the
mhm.
moment moving, and that is the weaving of the energies, and you could film it, but that's not the same. You can't hold it. It doesn't last like a statue or a painting or
Yes.
a tapestry. It's in that moment. So there's room at the table for everyone to express artistically. This is not the place where you have to shut down. I do see then where there's money and business, that there's this concept of, oh boy, all kinds of concept rivalry, competition, financial gain, financial resource. I mean, all kinds of those things enter the picture. But I think if you're an artist, your drive is the creation when you're trying to support yourself with it. So I think that can be kind of also where people's you have to question, the motivation of this going forward. Then there's also, I don't know if I think we were talking about it last time, but this idea that what you're talking about with the ancient Greeks, this wound, this kind of that
Trauma.
dance is one of those, like athleticism and all that within the Olympics was this ancient Greek way of sort of communing with the gods, and then the dance and theater and singing and music, all of these things that open you.
Mhm.
And when they're open, you are uniquely vulnerable. And so within the artistic realm, it, like you say, it's a soul's opening. You're
Mhm.
very, very vulnerable, which is why, I would really wish people would be a lot more sensitive to that, because you have the
Yeah.
potential to be able to damage somebody. You also have the potential to craft them, build them,
Mhm.
guide them, and so it takes a big responsibility to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And I think that there is like we have a bit of a, I don't know if it's warped, but within the West, it is so much more about like, oh, she's a good teacher, or she's a good dancer, I want to be like her, I'm going to follow her, she's my teacher, she's my idol, she's my guru. And it's not, because people can be incredible dancers and not great teachers, or not great people, or not great mentors. So you have to be
Yes.
very careful when you're learning something to keep it in the category of like, this is a skill set, this is a technique.
Mhm.
And when you really know somebody and can trust them, then you can open yourself up to more of a mentorship, more of a prolonged relationship, because you are quite vulnerable. And I see that a lot. One of the weird things, well, it's true in martial arts too, is this sort of cult like attachment to star dancers, where
Mhm.
people will just put them on these pedestals like their spiritual guru. And you know I think people sometimes will play into that as well, because it gives them a lot of power and influence and money, and I mean, all of it, the ego high and all of that. But it's quite dangerous. I think, I don't think that spirituality is something to be taken lightly.
Totally. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And usually the people who are no, I'm not gonna say that, but I agree. I agree with the fact that, it's dangerous to put any human in a position that is above you, like above you to a point where you treat them almost like a deity, because we're all human, we all, make errors. Although my dance teachers have been, when I saw them dancing, I remember that for me they were like, wow, goddess. goddesses. But then they
Yeah.
were super cool and we're like talking to us and we're making fun and we're being silly. And I think that's part of like, being human. I agree that it's dangerous to put somewhere there and then have this following just like they have in the spiritual traditions with the gurus. I often say like as a breath worker, because I speak from several personalities, if there's me, the painter, there's me, the dancer, and then there's me, the breath worker. The breath worker has learned that you are your own shaman, you are your own healer, you are through the breath, all of these things come to you, and each person who does the work, you will have this intrinsic wisdom. And then I also think that some people can activate certain things within you. Those things have to be activated in them in order to activate it in you. And that's why we all sort of um yeah not cooperate, but we
Yeah.
can help each other.
It's like a matrix of, yeah, the different combinations will yield different results, and sort of formulas of people connecting can then um, coalesce around a particular result.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a lot about, because when I'm teaching dance, I teach the musculature of the dance, because I just want people to know that at base, all this is a muscle contracting and relaxing. And that's it. You have that under your own command. Those are your muscles. It's simply a training of doing this and doing this. Then in different combinations yields this result physically, which can have this effect. And I try to just guide them through the technique and then let the technique function on their bodies as it will, so that I'm leading them into a place where then the dance will continue to teach them. They'll feel it. So they'll know, because they're feeling it and experiencing it, and can now follow. Eventually, I want them to be able to follow the path on their own. And they
Yes.
might go a different way, or further than me, or up the hill, or down, I mean, that at that point, you know how to walk, or you know how to ride a bicycle or whatever. I'm just teaching you how the technique works. Then you go. And that's what I would like for people to think of dance. Maybe that's what I'm saying, is that it's under your own process, and then you learn it and then you follow it. And it's wonderful to have companions along the way, and it's wonderful to have teachers who can help guide you to that place. But it's still, you're under the command of your own body, and that's where, and it's very empowering, especially for people who've been through trauma, to reunite with their own body, that they learn that they are in command of themselves. And then that therapy is quite lovely. But to get there, you go through a limbic space in the mind at which you are quite vulnerable, because that sort of sense of transformation is a very vulnerable place. So you just have to be a bit careful about who is in a place of power when you're in that state of mind.
Totally. Yes. Who is in a place of power when you're in the state of mind is exactly right. Because if there's this saying that if you're not in control of your mind, then who is, right? We're all being influenced by different people, and everything that you watch and that you receive and that you listen and that you attune to basically is programming you on a subconscious level. And to be just like really aware of what do you choose to
Imbibe.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. What do you tune in?
Yeah, so then I'm almost a contrarian sometimes. I feel like yes, but also, and then I flip the whole thing to the other side. Because sometimes in America, I don't know if this is happening. Well, I'll just say what's happening. Maybe it's a global phenomenon, because so much of stuff is now universal because of the internet. So once something becomes a fad, one place, it almost goes so fast through the internet that everybody starts doing it. But there's a toxic positivity where people will be like, I can only surround myself with these things, because if I let any of those other things in, then it's I don't know, it's somehow damaging me. And then they have this way, you become very solipsistic and narcissistic. Only the things you like. And you use the verbiage of like, no, that's toxic. No, that's negative. No, that's bad. And we kind of get this idea where it goes a bit too far, where I have to keep my space and energy clean. And I tell people, because I teach a class on chakras, that the ancient knowing and the concept of chakras is not clean or dirty. You can't clean or dirty energy. It's like a light bulb. It's on or it's off. And that's it. So you have electricity running or you have it off, and then you mitigate between the two. So the energy is churning or it's not. So it's either it can be like charged, lots of energy, or sluggish, very little energy. And what you want is the balance between these two. So it's not like dirty or clean, because with dirty and clean concepts, even if you mix a little dirty in there, it's still dirty, right? So if it's more, you could think of it more like height, like let's say anxiety would be a lot of energy and lethargy would be not enough energy. You want to balance between the two, because too much energy, you get mania, and too little, you get depression. So you want alert but calm, awake but and active but serene, and in sort of center. So this zone, you know. So I kind of think that too right now, is I'm almost reacting against this, yeah, I guess toxic positivity, where you just get to call things you don't like negative.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think that, there is like a balance between all of the things, and then there are certain people are different. Like, for example, I take me as an example. My body, I was born in a body that is hypersensitive, and I have not done a test. I actually don't need the test to know that I am on the autistic spectrum, but one day maybe I will do a test. Um, so there are certain things that that I learned that I cannot allow in
Right.
so I don't
And
like
that,
touch. I don't like, but hug, but it took me 36 years to like learn this. And then there are people who they are not born with a hypersensitive body, that for them it's okay to be like in the middle of the carnival, like with people drinking alcohol, and they're like having the fun of their lives, and then good for you.
yes.
But I think it's important to make this discernment of what is good for your body, and then get as much as the good that you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And I personally also stay away from a lot of things that I know would wouldn't be good for my nervous system, or if I talk in a more spiritual way, wouldn't, I have to like sort of keep my channel clean. I don't drink alcohol, I don't take drugs, so I'm not, you won't find me in this environment.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right that this is where a concept of yoga is, that yoga and all the positions, it's not that you're meant to do every single asana, it's that you use them like a prescription. If you're having this, you do these asanas. If you're having this, use this. Have that, do that. And it's like a pharmacy, right? You don't,
Yeah.
penicillin is good if you have a particular bacterial infection. It's not good every single day, right? So you
Hmm.
also find where you're at, and then what brings you back to balance from that position, rather than uniformly labeling uh, something like, this is good, I have to do it every day, or this is bad, I can never be around it. So it's sort of like this. Because
Yeah.
I think also, you might know through the study of like psychology, is that you have to have exposure to things that you're afraid of, or make you don't feel so comfortable, because that gives you more resilience
Hmm.
and strength. And so again, yeah, there's this balance, because again, and this might be in the US, I'm not quite sure, there's this hyper focus on only these particular things, to where people are becoming less and less resilient, because they're warding themselves off from anything that's upsetting. And
Yeah.
while I understand, again, if you're too upset that you're getting to the point of shutdown, you take a break, obviously you pull back and everything, but with the idea of not forever, I guess, you kind of, if you go too much of a shutdown all the way over here, then you really, you are quite weak mentally, emotionally, physically, you have to, yeah, like you're saying, this balance. And I actually think that's where dance is can be used as a tool to make it quite healthy, because you are in the moment, often pushing up against something that has a resistance to it. And and sort of dancing with that boundary of I'm not able to do it right now, but if I do it every day for in 6 weeks, I can now master this. And so you're pushing yourself towards a thing you didn't know that is hard, and now you're doing it more and more. It becomes easy, and then you do that. So if you use that kind of as a roadmap, I mean, I think this is one of the reasons dance is in this category of a spiritual practice, because that's what you're doing within meditation, with your mind, within,
Absolutely. For me, dance has never been anything else but a spiritual practice. And there is a video online for me. It's called Bayana that I did when I did the OD, the Orchidasi Dance Intensive with the Orchidasi crew. Sylvia Orchidasi has been my longest teacher, but Blue Orchidasi was my mentor for this piece. And then there was Penny and everyone and Penny gave me a really harsh critique on the piece, because looking back, my movement, maybe my technique is not, wonderful or incredible, but that piece got viral on YouTube. I didn't do anything. It just got viral because I am dancing everything that I am with my ancestors and my spirituality and my spirit animals. And I think that people started to comment that, and I really think that dance goes beyond, it's a language in itself, and it has the power to touch people. It's great if you have the technique. I think that you should have technique. I don't think that my technique was mind-blowing at the time, but my spirituality is, and that's what touched people. And it's definitely a spiritual practice to also to look at yourself, and why, because you were saying you're from the time where you didn't film, but now you're film. My teacher always told me, film yourself while you dance. And in the beginning, it feels great when you're like a beginner. Then you look at the video and you're like, oh my God, this looks horrible. And then you have to like do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again and be like consistent. And then eventually it starts looking good, and it not just feels good.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance there, because your teacher can tell you over and over again, lift your elbow, lift your elbow, lift your elbow, and in your mind, I am lifting my elbow. Like you think, right, you're sort of arguing back. Then when you see yourself on video with your elbows dropped and you see how that looks, you're gonna fix it because you want it to look. So it is very effective. But again, you don't want to do it so much that it makes you embarrassed, so much that you stop dancing. You only use it as a tool to let yourself continue. And then also don't get so caught up in the video, because for me, oh my God, I hate every video of me dancing. I hate it because because it's not how I feel. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's very odd. I will put it out there. Some of my best dances on video, even I don't have out. Most of my stuff is not online. I don't know why. It's a strange thing with me. I know that I have it, but I need somebody I trust very much to just put them out there, because I will fight about it every time and be like, no, no, no. But then years, decades, maybe later, I'll look back and be like, oh, that was really good. But I remember at the time crying at how horrible. So I think also it depends on your personality. Unfortunately, I have one that does not respond well with technology, which is not a good thing for our time in the world.
Maybe you can change it. This interview is we just pop out. Okay, we have 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Maybe you can change it. Well, let's talk about the future then. What is something, this is one of my questions, but I'm going to ask at least one of my questions that I wrote down here. But I think that we had a really good conversation about, it's almost like quantic. I didn't want it to leave the quantic realm with you. The conversation with you went to another plane. Yeah. But I have a question here. This is a tribal future question. That is, what is something ancient that you think humanity should carry into the future, or that you hope future generations keep alive? What is like an ancient technology, I call it. For me, it's the breath. I've always said it. What is it? April Rose, yesterday, she said that for her, it's the drum. What do you think what will be something
Well, I think dance really, and the ancient dances specifically. So my focal in the ancient dances, I mean, besides belly dance, which is quite ancient, is Odissi, temple dance, and specifically the Mahari lineage that goes through my teacher. So she studied from the Maharis are the temple priestesses of the Puri temple in Odisha, India, which
Uh-huh.
is where Odissi um, is
Was
from.
born. Hmm.
Hmm. But it is actually even older than that because there's statues. The oldest statue of a dancer in the world is from the Harappa people in I guess modern day. It's right on the border between modern India and Pakistan. And she's standing in a tribongi position, which is a very specific stance among the classical Indian dances. And so the Maharis, when I mean, they would teach my teacher about the circularity that was in the dance that has been taken out in modern times. It's become much more linear and fast. And so the circularity within it, to my eyes, when I see it, I mean, there used to be hip work. There was much more chest articulation. There was wrist circulation. Everything was a circle because it was based on the old chakra systems that were developed pre-Aryan. Now, Aryans also have chakra. I mean, the Indo-Aryan people or the Yamaya people also have the concept of this energy work, but it was different. So if you're interested in a book that talks about this, it's called The Kiss of the Yogini. And this is they kind of search back tantrism um, well, as far back as they can go. And there's these circles within it and the use of it. Now, of course, it doesn't talk about dance technique really, but then when you put it again with this statue and then you see within the temples and how the temples were built and all of that, these structures are inside of your body as ley lines are, meridian lines, right? So when you make the mudras, you're touching on particular meridians running through your hand that go into your organs and then come out your legs and go into the bottom of your feet. So when you do particular foot positions, you're activating these meridian lines. So from the feet to the fingertips, you're activating on both ends during the dance.
Hmm.
Then the organs themselves are being moved, especially through belly dance, the internal muscular style. You're squishing and releasing the organs as the muscles squish and release around them. So you're churning, not just to release toxins and all of that, but to keep it pliant. And within the Egyptian, mythos, each of the organs contained a particular deity or an energy or a humor. I mean, there's lots of this old world
Hmm.
knowledge of medicine, all of that. So then, as you are the dancer moving through these forms, you're activating principles inside of yourself that are, biologically unite us to as far back as we have records, including cave paintings, rituals and dances and musical instruments. And then as you go forward with it, like the dancers would dance on sand or dirt, their foot patterns would leave shapes and like a mandala, right? And that mandala in the earth would then radiate down and up at the same time, sort of as a mandala does. It's a vortex between two worlds.
Hmm.
And then you step back from that, and it's almost like those sand mandalas that the Tibetan monks make. Like it's only there for a moment, it's there and then it's destroyed, it fleets, it goes forward, it goes beyond. So there's this ephemeralness to the practice that I hope is goes forward, because so much of our future is, sorry, I have it turned off, but I have certain emergency contacts that and one of them is texting me. See, technology is interrupting. So technology is taking us to this place that is very, very quantum, right? It's beyond our body, and much of that movement is going to keep going. That there's no reason why it won't necessarily. I mean, as things go more and more virtual, they're going to be less and less physical, and so I'm hoping that the physical arts can maintain and not be sort of forgotten or left as we move out of that. Like another sort of thing we were talking last time about Kukulkan versus
Yes,
Quetzalcoatl.
actually,
Did you look it up? I did too.
I yes, I did actually look it up. Quetzalcoatl and and Kukulkan are the same thing. They are just referred to different deities and different I think eras or tribes, but they're basically the same thing. And also we wanted to say that you studied archaeology and anthropology and language, but you
Yeah.
decided not to go further and actually become a proper like anthropologist.
Yeah.
It's important to
Yeah,
just
no, I
mention that.
decided to go out and physically explore the world and learn dance rather than go the academic route. So yeah, I wanted to make that clear so it wasn't confusing for people. But
Yeah.
so as we move into those physical, so when I was looking up those things, I was remembering, especially within the Aztec, they thought that pain was cleansing to the body. So as you go through the pain, that was like it almost like cleared your circuits. So they would do things like that, you know, run a thorned vine through their tongue to like bring out this sort of pain, because the more pain you could sort of handle, the more it would put you into a state of mind and sort of clean you, which is a really different concept to pain, relationship to pain that we have now. Now we're
And
almost
blood. They had a really
and blood and pus and I mean everything that comes out of the body. Where in tantrism, these are thought of as elixir, the potential for magical elixirs. I won't say that just are wholesale, but the use of them within certain, like we talked about with the snake and the bowl and mixing, you know, milk or and blood and venom, and then making something you could drink to fight off diseases. And so they'll have these scientific, practical benefits, but I see so much of our world now, it goes from pain rather than understanding pain has a particular purpose, right? So if you mentally decide that every time you experience pain, it's bad, it's traumatic, you know, you put all these words onto it, then every time pain is inevitable, then you go further away from that. And then what are you leaving behind? What are you losing? What resilience, what strength, what physical, I don't know, capacity are you abandoning because you've decided that pain itself is toxic? Does that make sense?
yes, it makes sense. And to avoid us being cut again,
Yeah.
ladies, especially ladies, there might be a few gentlemen who might be listening to this. This is Moria Chappell. We could go to the eternity. We have to do a live on the chakras, you already said, and I really want the contact of your teacher, who's AG1,
Yes.
to
Yeah, Dr. Ratna Roy is her name. She's an Odissi.
Ratna Roy, yes, to interview her. But I want
Yeah.
to thank you for so generously spilling and opening. It's almost like opening a magic book. You are like opening a magic book, and then she goes, this is like an alchemical um process. I will put all the notes under here, and I just want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this interview. It's wonderful to talk to somebody who's also as interested in these things as I am.
Yes, I think we have a lot. We there's a lot of people who are. Everyone I talk to is okay. I'm gonna cut it here.
Okay.
Love and
Mwah.
blessings.